Okay guys, so today I just want to show you a few shortcuts that make the concepts we've learned so far in this chapter a little bit easier. So the first one is writing an equation from a table. So we know how to write an equation from a table. So if I give you this table, what we would say is that the dependent variable y increases by 3 each time. So I know that my equation is going to have some form of 3 times the independent variable x. But it's going to, usually it's plus something or minus something, because 3 times 1 does not give us 5. So what do we have to add to that to get 5? Well, 3 times 1 is 3, so it's plus 2 will give us 5. So that tells us the equation for this table is 3 times the independent variable x plus 2 gives us the dependent variable. And you can check that by looking at the second row, where x is 2. So you could say 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 would give you 8. The next row, 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 will give you 11, and so on and so forth. So if you're comfortable doing it that way, keep going, that's fine. Another way you could look at it is to figure out what you're adding or subtracting. We're still going to use that plus 3, what we go up by each time, to figure out what we're multiplying x by. But to figure out what we're adding and subtracting, we actually look for the 0 value. Now, sometimes you might have a table that has the 0 value in it when x equals 0, and you can just grab it and use it. If you don't, you can find it. So for example, in this case, when x is 1, y is 5. But because we're going up by 3 each time, we can say, well, if we backtrack, what plus 3 would have given us 5? Well, 2 plus 3 would have given us 5. So that 0 value is 2. This is our starting point. This is where our graph starts at that x equals 0. So like I said, sometimes that's already given to you. 0 might be in your column for x's, and then you don't have to find it. But if you can find that starting point, then your equation looks something like this. We start with the dependent variable, in this case y equals the amount we go up by each time, which is 3, times our independent variable x, plus the value we found for our starting point, plus 2. So y equals 3x plus 2. So that's just another way to find the equation from the table. So you would still need to find what you go up by each time. That's what you multiply your x by. But instead of doing trial and error to figure out what you add or subtract, you can just find that starting point, that 0 value, and that'll be the same thing. Okay. So this is your dependent variable, the change in the dependent variable, your independent variable, and your starting point. So your dependent variable equals your change times your independent variable plus your starting point. And if you can remember that format, then you just need to plug your values in. So let's try this one. Write the equation for the following table of values. So try to do it the new way. So what I would recommend is pause the video, give it a try, and then come back and see how you did. Okay, so the change in the dependent variable, we're going down by 2 each time. So if we want to find that starting point, that 0 value, we have to figure out what would come before 12 in this situation. So what take away 2 gives us 12, and that would be 14. So our equation would be our dependent variable y equals our change, which is -2, times our independent variable x plus our starting point 14. So our equation is y equals -2x plus 14. So the other thing I wanted to show you is kind of a shortcut for completing a table of values. You might have already stumbled across this, and that's awesome. So last week when we were completing these tables of values, we were taking every x value in the table, so in this case 1 to 8, and plugging it into the equation and seeing what we got for y. That's very time consuming, especially with large tables like this one. But the nice thing about completing a table of values, if you know that your equation is linear, which is what we're dealing with, is you really just have to do 3 of them. So let's do the first 3. So let's do for x equals 1. We end up getting y equals 10. Awesome. For x equals 2, y equals 14. And for x equals 3, y equals 18. So once you have 3 of these done, what you do now is figure out what is the pattern going on here. And I see that I'm adding 4 each time. So to finish my table, I don't have to plug every value back in the equation. I just follow the pattern. So 18 plus 4 is 22. 22 plus 4 is 26. 26 plus 4 is 30. 30 plus 4 is 34. And 34 plus 4 is 38. So if you figure out your first 3 values, then you can easily see your pattern and you can just go from there.